each other, just talking, visiting. All right, because I like it. It's just fun watching y'all visit together. Well, I'm going to have a word of prayer, and then I'll get out of the way, and Joyce will do some business, and then she will talk a little bit about safety and finances, okay? So let's pray together. Father, we do want to thank you. We know that today's schedule didn't catch you by surprise, so Father, we're grateful that you have provided somebody knowledgeable as Joyce Corley to present to us information that will be helpful. And Father, thank you especially that you have loved us so much that you have given us, you've demonstrated that love to us by giving us your only Son. And Lord, we thank you for a brand new year. We know that as we look back that we can see you, how you have mightily worked in our lives and the lives of loved ones and family. And Father, we anticipate that your work in your kingdom is not yet complete. Lord, at the same time, we say, Lord Jesus, come quickly. But Father, in the meantime, may we be sensitive to your Spirit. And even as we meet today, may we desire in all things to give you honor and glory and to live lives that as so many years ago when we heard the song and have sung it, this little light of mine. Lord, may we allow the light in us, the light of Christ, to shine forth. So thank you for allowing us to gather together, and we ask that you'll bless this time, for we ask it in Jesus' name. And all God's people said, amen. Miss Joyce, I think you got some business for us. Where? Oh, there you are. I lost you. You was back there, and then all of a sudden you disappeared. Sweet lady, come on up here. Come on up here, let me squeeze you, and then I'll go sit down.
All righty. Good morning. Everybody, I have no idea what they've gotten me into, but we're going to win it. I don't have a degree in mics. No.
Nor mine. Okay.
No.
All right.
But I do like Bill.
Okay, Bill. Okay.
Okay.
All right, try that. Here we go.
Okay. Now, can you hear me?
Is that
Okay.
better?
Is that?
I'll add a little volume.
Oh, we're loud enough, I think. Anyway, I want to welcome all of you this morning. I want to take you back on a little journey. Back years ago when I was growing up, we had a Sunday school lesson every Sunday, and we had our little Sunday school books, and we worked all week on our Sunday school lesson that would bring us to Sunday. We had what we called a memory verse at that time. Everybody in the class had to learn that memory verse. And when we got to Sunday school, we all stood in the classroom, and the teacher would call on us the word she used to recite, not to say, but recite. We had to recite that memory verse before we could take a seat. And after we each said our memory verse, we got to sit down, and then the class would start. One of the first verses I can remember learning, we learned, you can imagine as old as I am how many I've learned. But one of the first ones we learned was, "This is a day that the Lord has made. I will rejoice and be glad in it." That comes from the book of Psalms. And that's always stood out in my mind because every morning when I open my eyes, the first thing I think about is the Lord has given me another day. And I'm going to be happy. And every morning when I get up, I say, "Lord, I've been so good. I hadn't made anybody mad. I hadn't fussed about anything. I hadn't griped about my food. I hadn't complained about being hot or cold, but I just woke up. And the Lord understands that I'm going to do something during the day, but that's the first thing I think about." All right. This morning, I want to welcome all of you here, and we're going to look at our coming events. We've got some good things going on here. We have got Thursday, February the 9th. is going to be our Valentine's lunch. And Miss Lisa's taking money today if you want to make your reservation, $5 for the lunch. Then Thursday, March the 23rd, 10:30, the Old Country Store, and that sounds good. Going to be Dutch treat. We'll pay as we go. And if any of you watch the news, the Old Country Store was voted one of the best buffets in West Tennessee this last week. Thursday, April the 13th, that's going to be a biggie. That's the chartered bus trip to Patty's, where we get the 2-inch pork chop and the bread in the flower pot. And we all love patties. I love bread, as you can tell. And it's going to be a $70 trip, and we need to get our reservations into Miss Lisa. Lisa, I have been asked several times if it's just church members that get first choice or if it's first come, first serve. My understanding, it's first come, first serve. First person to sign up, first come, first serve. So there's no partiality there. Now, if you look to the back of your book, your little programs, you'll see the minutes of the last meeting. I hope you've had a chance to look them over, and I wonder if I have a motion to accept these minutes. Sue Beavis, and second by Mr. Patterson. Our financial report, you'll see on the inside of your program, and that's a great balance. If I'd known we were there, I'd have tried to come up with the rest of the money to get us up to $1,000, but we just didn't quite make it. But you see that, and I wonder if anyone wants to make a motion that we accept the financial report as printed. Mr. Swope. Second by Ms. Beavis. All righty. Now we've talked about the upcoming things, and now I'm supposed to introduce our speaker for today, but he can't be here. So we're going to cover a whole bunch of things. I've been through security many, many times, and I was the security officer for our bank for 27 years. And a lot of responsibility falls under that category. So I'm going to go over some things with you. You may have some questions. We'll talk about not only things at the bank, but things at home and other things that happen. Now, my mother-in-law, we personally experienced this, was walking at the mall. When the mall first opened, she was one of the first employees that Macy's had, and they were getting ready to open, and she was going to her car one night, and a guy comes by in a car, and he swings over. She has her purse on her arm, grabs that purse, knocks her down, and drives off. And we like to have never, with all we had to do, get everything straightened out about that. It hurt her. She was sick for a long time. There wasn't anything we could do. And above that, it's on a private parking lot. And we have a good police presence in Jackson. We have a lot of good patrolmen that are good to help us. But when you're on a private parking lot, there's not a whole lot they can do. So always, let me tell you, when you're out like that, don't carry that big purse on your arm, either arm. Either carry it in front or up under your jacket, with your hand up under your jacket, where they can't see it. Now, I've gotten in the habit of not taking a purse in when I go. If I have a credit card to that store, I stick that credit card in my pocket, put my key in the other pocket, I button my coat up, and I march in that store like I've got $1 million. And if anybody's standing close to me, the first thought they have is, how in the world's that lady going to pay for what she's buying? She hadn't even got a purse. But I've got my protection in my pocket. Another thing is if you're home and somebody breaks in your house, don't try to be a hero. Don't jump up and start grabbing stuff to knock them in the head with and everything. Be very still. Be very still. And if you're asleep or in bed during the night, lay real still. And there's a couple of things you can do to protect yourself. Number one, you can buy a can of wasp and hornet spray. Leave it beside your bed. Lay quietly until they get in that bedroom. And when they start coming toward you, pick that can of spray out from under the cover, spray them good, knock them for a loop. That gives you time to call the sheriff. Get there. They're still going to be rubbing their eyes and coughing. Another thing is, if you're in bed, lay very still. Let them get just right over you. And if you've got a ballpoint pen close by, take that ballpoint pen and jab them in the eye, and that'll stop it. Now, this sounds cruel, but you've got to protect your own self because nobody else is going to protect you. And if you're a woman and you're alone, you've got to take care of yourself. And always, when you're at home alone, leave those doors locked. Now, I love to open my doors. I leave my doors open, but my storm door is always locked. And make sure you keep those doors locked. Because if you don't, they're going to come in. And if you're out mowing, let your garage door down so they can't get in your house while you're outside. That's how a lot of people get caught and catch people in their house. They'll be outside doing something. They'll come in, go in their house, and they won't know that those people are fixing to get through with what they're doing. They'll come in, and they'll come in on them. And somebody gets hurt every time that happens almost. So, you have to be careful. When you're going to your car, always be aware of your surroundings. And when you park, always be aware of what's around. If you pull in a parking lot and there's a dumpster and a big truck and another dumpster, don't park in that area. I mean, we got to use some common sense. You got to park out where it's open, where you can be seen so that people going to their car can see you. And if anything happens to you, you've got a witness and they can help you. We all have cell phones now. That cell phone is a good item to have. And some of the cell phones have a button that goes on alarm. And if somebody's trying to attack you and you push that cell phone button, it's going to scare the wheelie out of them when that button starts going off. Because trust me, it sounds horrible. Had that happen to me one time, and it was my fault. I went to the cart, I threw my purse in, not thinking, and that alarm went off. And I like to have never got it fixed. I had to call somebody to come help me fix it. Matter of fact, I never knew much about cell phones. Finally, the people I worked with talked me into getting one, and it was a bag phone. I had to get to work every morning, undo it, take it into work with me. Did that for years. Did it for years. Well, they were all getting flip phones. They were all saying, Joyce, you got to get rid of that bag phone. You got to get you a flip phone. You're out of date. Everything, you just got to keep up. I still went on with my bag phone. It was working. I was always taught, if it's not broke, don't fix it. So anyway, finally, I went over, talked to Jim Hicks. I'm sure all of you know him. He was the first one in Jackson to have cell phones. Talked to Jim. I said, Jim, I'm going to have to get another phone. He said, Joyce, you're probably the only one on the planet that's got a bag phone. Okay? So I get a flip phone. I never knew much about them. I still don't know much how to use them. And my grandkids can do anything on them. If you've got anybody in Russia you want to get in touch with, call me. I'll get my granddaughter on the phone and they'll be on the phone for you. I'm telling you, these kids can work them. And when I was at First Tennessee, Mr. Parkey had been there for years. And he came in one morning all excited. He'd gotten a new computer. Well, none of us had computers at that time because they were so new. And he said, y'all know what? I got my computer. My little 3-year-old granddaughter spent the weekend with me, and that thing talks. He'd been He'd been using it all that time playing a squirrel game where the little squirrel chased a nut everywhere. And he didn't know it made music and talked and told the squirrel where to go and what to do. He'd been playing on it all that time, and he thought he was so good with that computer. And finds out his little 3-year-old goes up and punches a button. She says, "Granddaddy, listen." He said, "What is that?" It was his computer. He didn't even know. So we're older. We don't understand a lot of things. But these kids know everything. Trust me, they're smart. Now, banking is a different thing altogether. How many of you have a debit card? How many of you have a credit card? Now, the big question. How many of you do banking online? Online banking, when it's working, is one of the greatest tools there is. But there are so many dishonest people now that it has turned something that's good, that could be wonderful for people like us, into a bad thing. Recently, I had a call. Well, let me tell you how it started. First month after I retired, I just recently retired, as y'all know. And the first month after I retired, I went by the cable office, Spectrum, down by Kroger on Linwood. And I talked to them and I said, "Y'all, my bill's too high. Now, I've just retired and I'm going to be living on Social Security, and I've never had this problem before, but I want to know what you can do to cut my bill." Well, they pull everything up, they look at everything, they said, "Best we can do for you is $9.95. I said, $9.95? It wouldn't be worth $9.95 for you to take it off my bill." They said, "Well, that's all we can do because you've got basic cable, you've got basic internet, you don't have anything fancy." I said, "Well, it's too high, whatever it is." And I said, "I think I'm just going to cancel it." "Oh, no, Miss Corley, you don't want to cancel it. We're going to give you this number to call." And this is called our retention department. And they will do everything they can to help you because they don't want you to cancel your service. I said, "Okay, that's fair enough." So I go home. Probably less than 2 hours after I walk in the door, I get this call. "Miss Corley, this is Spectrum. We have a special for seniors. Isn't that wonderful?" Yes, it is wonderful. What's going through my mind is, well, I just left there. They must have called the office and told them that I complained. So they're going to do something to help me. Well, now we've got several ways. This is your account number. This is when it's due. This is what you're paying. And we see that you pay every month by direct debit. We can cut your payment down to $109 a month. Wow, it was more than that when I signed up for cable. I thought, man, this is wonderful. They said, all you've got to do is send us a check for $361, which will pay your November payment and your December payment to the due date. Can you do that? I said, no. I said, my payment's debited. Just debit my account for it. No, now on this promotion, you have to pay up front. You got to pay cash. Well, that struck a thing in the back of my mind. I said, okay, let me tell you something. Let me think about it, and I'll call you back. So here's what happened. I called Spectrum, and I said, are you all running a special? No, ma'am. It's the truth, Lord, I promise. No, ma'am, we're not running any kind of special. I said, okay, I just had a call. They said, well, it's not true. I said, then somebody with Spectrum is not honest, because those people had my account number, the amount of my bill, the due date, the fact that it was coming directly out of my account. Well, they take it out of my account, $361.47, I believe. And you would have thought I had been the one that was the culprit rather than the victim. I spent, I don't know how many trips to the Spectrum office trying to get it fixed. They sent me an email showing that it was paid, that I was supposed to get a special rate. I carried the email to them, had their name on it, the logo, everything. Looked as legal as it could look. They said, that's not ours. Well, you can't prove a phone call, unless you've got it recorded. Naturally, I didn't record the phone call. So anyway, I spent trips, but the first thing I did was I called the police department. They advised me I'd have to call the sheriff's department because I live in the county. So that's a good tip for you right there. If you live in the city, you would call the city police. If you're in the county, always call the sheriff's department. And each one of them have a fraud department. Next, I called the bank, put them on alert. Then I called the man in charge of the security for the bank. Just so happens he's a former Jackson resident who has been transferred to Memphis, who handles security for all of West Tennessee. I happen to know him. He got right on it. I got my money back. They put it into my account. And the policeman told me, he said, Miss Corley, you did the three things that's most important. He said, if you hadn't followed that trail, he said, we would have had a hard time ever getting your money back. He said, number one, you notified the authorities. Number two, you notified the bank. And number three, you did a fraud report. Anytime you're dealing with the bank and you have a problem, always do that fraud report on a debit card or a credit card. And I'm sure many of you know some of these same stories, and you know people this has happened to. And a lot of times it happens to people that are not as fortunate as I was. They just say, chalk it up to experience or something like that. But I wasn't going to give them $300. Money's money. I'm not greedy, but I want to know where my money goes. And I'm going to follow it through just like an old bird dog. I'm going to hang on to it till I get to the end. And I did get my money back. Fraud now, I found this out with all this people. I talked to the head people at Spectrum in New York. They can go in and buy, and you notice this the next time you get a spam call, and you get them every day, I'm sure. They can buy a block of phone numbers. It looks like a local call. And there is nothing, let me repeat, nothing the police department or the telephone company or anybody can do to identify those people. And when you get that call, it's got 731, but they're probably in. A lot of them are in India. A lot of them are in New Jersey. A lot of them are in Florida. A lot of them are in California. And every day at that bank, there is at least 3 people that comes in with a complaint about something on one of their credit cards or their debit cards. And trust me, it's hard to run any of that stuff down. So if you use a debit card, which is wonderful, I love it because you don't have to carry cash. And if somebody robs you, if you've got a credit card, they're going to take it and use it all up. If you've got a debit card, they can only get $200 a day. And you can go back and dispute that. But it's hard to find if you've got cash. You never get that back. But guard those credit cards and guard those debit cards. I keep mine in a little thing that says First Bank. Just fits right in it. Just keep it in my pocket when I'm out shopping if I'm going to use it. Nobody uses cash hardly today. But I ran into something the other day where you had to have cash. If you've ever bought a pair of Skechers and you go in there, you get ready to check out, and they've got this wonderful sale where if you buy one pair, you get a pair for half price. Man, they got all these pretty colors out there, and you want every one of them. But if you buy a pair of shoes, you go up to check out, and they say, how are you going to be paying today? I'm going to write you a check. I'm sorry, we don't accept checks. I'm going to use my debit card. I'm sorry, we don't accept debit cards. We either take a credit card or cash. Only place in the world I know where that you can do that in Jackson, because most places in Jackson, everybody takes a debit card. I buy my groceries, I can use a debit card. I buy gas, I can use a debit card. Anywhere you go, you can use that debit card. But if you go to Skechers now, you gotta have cash. Just so happens that my nephew was pastor at First Baptist Church in Union City, and there was a couple checking out with me. And we had been talking about my nephew. He's gone now to Kingsport. We'd been talking about him. And that man said, I know you. He said, if you want those shoes, I've got enough money in my billfold. I'll pay for them for you, and you can just write me a check. That's what happened. The Lord blessed me right there at that point by that man having enough cash, and I gave him a check. Simply because of a connection that we'd had, and he knew who I was. Now, that would probably never happen again, because it would be somebody I didn't know from Adam, and they wouldn't do that for me. So, back to the to the cable problem, though. For 3 months, I can't write a check to cable without going into the store. I can't pay cash to cable without going into the store. I can't use my debit card at cable without going into the store. For the next 3 months, I have to do it in person to show that it goes directly to cable. And when you are scammed, it's like you're the one that does the scamming and not the victim. It's harder for you than it is for anybody else. If you're going out at night, ladies, go in twos. Out of your car in twos, come back to your car in twos. I have encountered people on the parking lot who have come up to me and asked me for money to get gas because their car is out of gas. You've probably done the same thing. Trust me, they don't want gas. They just want you to open that purse. That's all they want. Don't ever do it. And I have to tell a story sometime. Yesterday, I had gotten a letter about a recall on my automobile. I had called Golden Circle Ford, had them on the phone, making my appointment to when I can take my car in. I get off the phone with them, get everything set up. My phone rings. Miss Corley, Ford Motor Company. We notice your warranty is about to expire. We got a special running right now. You can get bumper-to-bumper warranty for 5 years. 5 years. And I've already had it 5 years. 10 years, I'm going to have that bumper-to-bumper. Everything covered. Everything. You're only going to have to pay for 2 years, $164 a month. And the last 3 years, you won't have to pay a thing. But if anything happens to that car, it's going to be fixed and not going to cost you a penny. Now, doesn't that sound good? Well, sure, it sounds good. Well, we want to connect you with one of our agents who can talk to you about it and tell you about it. I said, all right, that's fine. So they come to the phone. They said, Miss Corley, we've got this deal. I'm sure they've already explained it to you, but we've got to sign you up today because it ends today. I said, okay. They said, now, are you ready to sign? This is going to be so wonderful. You'll never just think of all the money you're going to save in expenses and repairs on that car. And even includes free oil change and tire rotation. Man, that sounds better all the time. I said, well, and here again, forgive me, Lord. I'd have to talk to my husband about that. Miss Corley, you mean you don't have the authority over your car to do whatever you want to do? No, I'd have to speak to my husband, and he's a district attorney, and I don't know if he's in Madison County today or one of the other western counties. And they say, well, can you get in touch with him? I said, I'll try. And if you'll give me your number, as soon as I get him on the phone, I'll have him call you because this just sounds wonderful. She said, okay. I said, all right, give me that number. She says, okay. Plunk, ended the call. It was a spam. And they can get you for anything. And they'll call you saying they've got a collect call from your grandchild. Will you take this call? Because something's happened. They're in college and so, but they just had a bomb threat. And your child's been carried down to the police department. They're holding them because they were seen talking to the group that made the bomb threat. Oh my goodness. The first thing you do is my grandchild. You're going to do anything you can do for that grandchild. Now, if you'll send us $2,500, I said, that child never has done anything in her life for $2,500. I said, you'd have to have at least 10 for her. And when I said that, they hung the phone up. And then I get them all the time that says, we're calling, you've got a friend that's in the penitentiary. Penitentiary, I hadn't heard that word in years. I said, you mean they're being held in jail somewhere? Oh, yes, ma'am, they're being held. And they're wanting out, but they want to talk to you because you're one of their best friends. I said, well, I'd sure love to talk to them, but you know I'm so busy right now, I just don't have time. Plunk, and I hang the phone up. You've got to be vigilant, and you've got to be careful all the time. And trust me, when you go to the bank, always count your money back. We balance every day. We balance 3 times a day. We balance before lunch, we balance after lunch, and then we balance at closing. We balance, and if we're out $1, we've got to stay until we can find it. And I've stayed lots of nights till 7:30 looking for $201. Always count your money back. Those tellers are efficient, they're good, they've got machines to verify everything they do, but they're human. And sometimes they can put in a wrong number. That wrong number, your money can go to somebody else's account. So always check your receipts, always check your money if you get cash, and don't try to confuse the tellers. Don't give them a $100 bill and say, I want 10 to go here in this account, 10 in that account, 10 in that. Write it down so they know what to do. They're only human. They can't remember 9 account numbers at one time. And it makes you mad if you've got to wait and they've got to ask you for that second account number again because you think, I'm wasting my time. She ought to know what I want to do. I go to this bank all the time. I've heard that. They get mad. They come in. They want to report the teller. Well, it's not the teller's fault. It's your fault. And you pull up to a drive up and you say, I want to cash this check. Goes into account number 4567889. Well, we've got 9 other people in the drive-thru out here. Every one of them hear that account. And if you give them that account number, they can write it down and go anywhere and draw money out. So please be careful. It's a 2-way street. You've got to be vigilant. The police want to help us. The bank wants to help you. And trust me, I was at the bank 42 years, and I never knew of us taking anybody's money. Not anybody's. The bank don't want your money. They want your business, but they don't want your money. They want it to go where you want it to go because it's your money. And they're working for you. And it's different today than it used to be. It used to be when you walked in a bank, everybody knew you and knew your name, and they called you by name. Good to see you. How you doing today? Or they'd come into your office. I don't guess there was ever a person that went in our bank that didn't come in my office. I've even had them come in there saying they were just going home from the emergency room with the flu and fall out in a chair. But they had a problem. They needed money right then. Now, I can't imagine anybody that's got the flu and leaving the emergency room that really needs money. They could at least wait 2 or 3 days. But anyway, it happens. But the bank is very, very cautious. They take every step they can to try to take care of you. And at home, please be careful. When you're out in a parking lot, please be careful. Don't ever park in a dark parking lot. It's not well lighted. I try to always look for a light. If I can see a light, I try to park where it's either shining on me or around me. There are many little things that you don't think about that you can do that can save a lot of things in the long run. Now, I guess I've just about covered anything. Is there anything? Any questions? Yes, ma'am. Hmm. Hmm. Definitely. And if you want them to, ask them to write the account number if you can't read it right then and they don't have time to ink or put a new pad in. And they want to do right. They want you to be happy. They want you to be excited enough that you can't wait to come back to see us. So, yes, no, it won't make them mad. They might go, we're so busy right now, we don't have time to do it. But, depends on which bank you go to. A lot of them know you by number, a lot of them know you by name. I'm grateful, and the Lord blessed me by putting me in a bank where we knew everybody's name. And when yes. Uh huh. All right, I can answer that question two ways. You don't have enough money in your account. A debit card always pays point of sale. Doesn't matter. If you've got $20 in that account and your bill is $200, debit card pays, and then the bank bills you the difference. They'll call you the next day and they'll say, Miss Lewis, is that right? Lewis? Miss Lewis, you did a purchase yesterday and you were $300 short. Oh, I know that. I'm going by the bank today to take care of it, but thank you for calling me. That's the way it happens. With a credit card, yes, they'll charge it and use it. But a credit card, they can go anywhere. With the debit card, you've got a PIN number. And if they don't have that PIN number, they can't possibly use it. And it has a limit what they can use every day. And if they go over that limit, that's it. A credit card doesn't. You may have a credit card for $15,000. They may be going to buy something for $4,000. They use your debit card, it's going to block it. It won't let it go through because you can't do anything. You can't have over $600 a day with a credit card. That's with a debit card. That's withdrawing, using it to pay anything. If it goes up to $600, blocks it right there. $200 one-time purchase. But a credit card, free for all. Yes. Mm-hmm. Still, if it's a debit card, it's point of sale. The bank will call you the next day. Because all transactions now, most of them are online. The most you should ever have if you use a debit card, say on Friday, it might be Monday before the bank catches it because of the weekend and people not in the offices on Saturday and Sunday. but they're going to catch that, and the bank will call you. And not only will they call you, they'll send you a notice. You open that up. Oh my, I got to get to the bank quick. They're writing me. They're going to come do something to me. They're serious. They're protecting you, is what they're doing. And they're not trying to make you mad, but it makes you feel that way. But a debit card always, a point of sale, it will take it. I probably shouldn't be telling y'all all that, but it's important to know. Anybody else? Anything else? Yes, ma'am? And you know what? When they get back to that basket, they don't even notice that it's missing until they get ready to check out. I've had that happen. Not to me, but we had a customer that happened to. We said, well, where did you lose it? Somewhere between the produce and checkout. They don't know where they lost it. Uh-huh. Yeah. And another little trick is when you go, especially to the grocery store. Now, I don't know about a lot of these other places. Uh, they have the little straps for children. You can strap your purse that, and they can't get it out of that basket. And it makes them so mad they'll walk off and not get it. So, there's a lot. And another little trick, if you've got one of these where you can see in the trunk, is if you've got a jacket or something, put that over your purse and put a dollar store sack over it. They don't want anything from the dollar store. But if you put a Macy's or a Belk or a Talbot's or something like that, they're going to tear through it. They're thinking they're getting something really big. But you put a dollar store sack, it'll deter them every time. You wouldn't think of that, but it does. Yes. Mhm. Victim. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. That's terrible. Well, I was at Sam's one day, and Beverly Lawrence, now she used to be Beverly Heron, who was there. We walked out together, and we were talking, and she had a big basket. I just had a small bag. And this guy walks up, and he said, "Ma'am, you've got so much there, and you're so small. Let me help you load." I looked at Beverly, and I said, "That's okay, I'll help her." Like that. And we worked there. She went back to Sam's, and another guy approached her, and he got her purse while she was putting the stuff in the car. At the bank, our practice is don't be a hero. Never try to be a hero. If somebody comes in wanting to rob you and they ask for $10,000, you try to get it and give it to them. Act as normal as you can. Don't draw attention to yourself. Don't do anything. And if you're ever in a line in a bank, somebody walks up to rob you, puts what you think might be a gun in your back, and they ask you for whatever it is when you make your withdrawal, you get it. Now, most of the time, your tellers are going to be sharp enough that if you don't withdraw money like that, they're going to say, "Well, we've got to fill out a CRT form on you. What are you going to do with all this money?" You got to come up with some quick answers, or they're going to catch on to what they're doing, and they've got a button, and they're going to push that button. It will automatically lock the bank doors. Nobody can get in, nobody can get out, and it goes to the police department. And by the time that customer gets back to the front door, the police is going to be there. But don't be a hero. We had a young boy that was one of the managers. The people were coming into work that morning, and he hid behind a shrubbery. And as those people came in, he held a gun on them and carried them into the basement. Would let them go up. So when the last person got there, he thought he was going to be a hero. The guy starts to leave to go upstairs to rob it when they opened the vault. And this manager runs after him, knocks him down, apprehends him on the parking lot, holds him, the police gets there. And he gets fired on the spot. The reason for that is not only for his safety, but for the safety of all those other employees. That guy could have shot and killed every one of them. So don't ever try to be a hero. And there's one I'm going to tell you for the last time. Little 90-year-old lady. Man's after her. She's got one of these big purses, and she's walking down the street, and he says, grabs her, turns her around, and he says, "I want that purse. Give me that purse." She says, "You want it? All right." She just throws it on the ground, and everything comes out of it. And he's so stunned, he runs off, and he doesn't take her purse. That's what it is. Anything else? Yes. Public knowledge. You can look and see anybody's taxes, anything. And if attorney prepares anything, he has to look that up. And all of that is public knowledge. You could go down here to the courthouse, and anything you wanted on anybody you can look up. Yeah. Yeah, it's a good thing you did that. That's why I say you need to always be aware of everything. That's why with the spectrum, see, I thought that was really legit. That's why I said, debit my account. That's how I pay my bills. And you naturally would think that. But yes. No, I was just going to say anything can happen at any time. Police alert. I do. Well, Well, there's two going around now. There's one that comes from the police department now that you can give so much money. They're going to mail you a form. Tell them how much you're going to give, and that form will read that you have to fill it out and give that $25 or whatever, and that it's going to the police to help fund the extra money that the police are having to be paid because of all the extra work they're having to do. That is a scam. And then there's one from AT&T that's going on. So you have to be careful. And always remember that a bank, AT&T, cable, anything, anybody that's a reputable business, they're not going to call you on the phone. You're going to get it in writing. That's a law. All have to be. When you get to be our age, and I'm going to say that because I'm our age now, we have to look after each other. If we see something going on or know of something, we have to tell the people. We have to help each other. And trust me, every scammer out there wants to take advantage of a woman. So if you answer that phone, if you live alone, you just tell them, let me let you talk to my husband. They'll hang up. They're not going to hold that phone. They don't want to talk to him because they know he'll tell them off. So anytime, just say, hang on just a second, let me get my husband for you. He handles that. And just do it so innocently. Right. Yes. that's what made a lot of banks, and a lot of people got mad at this, but a lot of banks started doing statements online instead of putting them in the mail because thieves could get them out of their mailboxes. With our mail system, you never know where they went. And I know this firsthand because I was told this by the postmaster. There were people in Memphis that were sorting mail, and they had a device, I don't know what it was, on the line at the post office. They could hold an envelope and see if it was a check or cash. And those workers could pull that instead of letting it go on through the belt. When they'd leave, they'd take them home, open them up, and they had a way to wipe out the ink. And they could put their name where you had that name and any amount where you had the amount. And I don't know of anything that's foolproof. That you just have to trust the Lord to watch over you and take care of you and help you every day. That happened before to us with a subdivision, a whole subdivision, when Social Security checks. That's one thing that prompted Social. Well, I use a barrel. I can burn out in the yard, and I have a barrel. And I just save my receipts and things. When I get so much in a sack full, I just take them out and burn them. Online banking is safe because the bank they have, let me see this, they have everything encrypted, and there's a duplicate of everything you do with your banking. And online banking, when you don't have scammers, and you notice when your account is breached, it's normally through a company or a corporation. It is not an individual. They breach through those that have multiple accounts because it's so much easier. Because if they hit one number, they know they can do thousands from that one. And you're not going to have that from one account or two accounts. But when you've got multiple accounts, that's when it becomes really unsafe. And that's through that company. That's really not the bank, and it's really not through using direct deposit or anything like that. Anything else? Brother Lonnie?
Y'all will notice for the April trip to Patty's, the menu selections are limited. That's not us, that's Patty's. That's how they do groups of 30 or more. You have to sign a 2-page contract and pay